Hi, everyone. We're so glad that you decided to join us for this educational workshop. My name is Lynn Pullen. I'm the co-founder of Kindred Beginnings, a family building support community offering a safe, brave space for those navigating the journey to be supported, heard, and validated. If you have any questions about our programs or how we can help better support you, please reach out to me or visit our website. You are in for a super treat today, a true act of total self-care as we shake up our energy. I've already got some energy going on with my crazy screen. We don't know what's going on with my lighting, but we're shaking up the energy. We're going to shake up our energy. We're going to lean into healing with my dear friend, Heather Woolley. Heather is now a Reiki certified energy healer, but her career path wound its way through lawyering, culture, and HR training with large and small businesses and business development training before leading her to Reiki energy healing and tarot card reading. It's super cool. She has spent much of her career as a lawyer teaching other lawyers about how to develop business, how to litigate cases, and how to be a better lawyer. In her spare time, she has the great privilege of mentoring lawyers and other professionals in developing their career paths and negotiating for better salaries and positions. As a lawyer turned energy healer, Heather's superpower is helping people see and clear away the things in their life that are blocking positive energy. A common thread through all of her work and teaching is to empower people to set aside fear and embrace their true selves, just as she's embraced her own fears in stepping into her role as an energy healer and artist. Heather also takes pieces of old jewelry and reimagines them into new creations, and you can view her creations on Facebook Marketplace and learn more about Heather and see her artwork on our Facebook business page, which we will link up in the notes in the description with this video. And you can also visit her on Instagram at Guided to Heal Tarot. Yes?
Yes.
Welcome, Heather. Thank you for creating this healing space today. I'm super excited.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Lynn. I'm very excited as well, and for everyone participating today. You got the little overview. I will just briefly touch on that. My winding journey from my 17-year career as a lawyer, and then kind of wound my way through to the Reiki and the tarot card reading. And everybody usually goes, "What?" Because it seems very counterintuitive and dissonant, right? But at the end of the day, really, my whole life has always been, I've always been very empathic and in tune with people around me, and the energy kind of, the word vibe has gotten so overused, but it's what it is, right? And in lawyering, those skills that I was tapping into in reading people and being able to pull more information from them in a really natural way really was related to the same set of skills that I use in energy healing, which is also to hold space for people, right? Like that's really what my job is. And in doing this, what it's really given me the opportunity to do is go from an antagonistic career where everything was very adversarial to being able to use these skills in a much more positive energy way all the time, which is fantastic. And what I was really glad when Lynn and I spoke about me coming to speak to everyone today was to be able to offer something that I've been working on in my own personal life, and then I've found to be very impactful as to both my clients and just to people around me in my social media posts and things like that, is this idea of grace, not guilt, right? And the idea of being able to tap into your own self energy and really have some techniques and strategies to pull ourselves away from that negative self-talk and those kind of have some of those things that are touchstones in those moments where you feel like, everything is just crashing down around you, how you can bring yourself back to the center of who you are and really kind of give yourself a different perspective. And then that kind of continues to build, right? Like once you have those skills and strategies, or maybe you have some already, but there's now going to be new ones that you learned that you can use in different points in time in your life. It puts you in a place of being more open and really being able to expand your energy in a way that invites the things that you're looking for, right? Which is not to say that they aren't going to come anyway, but to be able to focus on sort of that thought of bringing ease and grace into your life, even when it doesn't feel that way. So the first part that I want to talk about is we'll talk a little bit about Reiki, just so in case everybody isn't aware of what Reiki is.
Yes. Tell us
Reiki
what it is
is
and your role as an energy healer too. What your job is. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reiki is really the idea that we're all made up of energy, right? Like, and that's what it is. It's science. It's not just in a like Star Wars, Star Trek energy kind of, out in the space time continuum. But also that literally if you put your hands together and you hold them up next to each other, you can feel the energy and the heat generated between your hands, right? There's actually 70 joules of measurable energy when you hold your hands like this, right? And the longer you hold it and the more you think about it, the more you can start to sort of feel that like vibration almost, right? And so the idea of Reiki is taking that ability to tap into energy and reaching out into the universe, right? And being able to say, okay, we are all made of energy. What are the messages that we can read and use to help shift the energy that exists in our body? And my role as an energy healer is to be the conduit for those messages and also sort of the thermometer for the energy, right? So, like, literally, when I work on someone, I'm putting my hands over them and feeling where there feel like there's blockages, where it feels like there are areas that are being affected, whether it's physically or just on an energy level. And without fail, every time, people always come in and like, do you need me to tell you like what's going on? And they kind of start out like this, and I'm like, nope. If you want to, sure, but like just lay down, relax, and as I start to move through their body, the stuff just comes out, right? Like I just say the stuff that I always say. I'm just the messenger. I'm not, it's just coming through my brain. I'm just saying the things as they come up, and usually by the time I get midway through, half the time people start crying, not in a bad way, but in that like release and relief, right? Like, oh my God, I'm being validated. These things that I've been carrying around because, trauma lives in our body, right? And the things that I've been carrying around are being recognized in a safe space, right? And they're being honored. And I'm being allowed to feel them and not feel shame or feel guilty or any of those things for having those emotions. And it sometimes is that outside, like objective third party participation, right? Like that objective voice from like, some of the people I know, some of them are my friends, and there's some people who I've, never met before I do this. And regardless, there's always a piece of things that like they haven't told me. And so when that comes to the fore, then really being able to like, oh, I really can surrender this to the universe. And there really is a place for me to be able to put it, is where I see the most sort of movement and healing take place, right? Is that acknowledgement of where you're at and the fact that you had to go through this, can be both um, painful and very difficult, and then also provide you with information that can help you move through the healing process. So, so that's really what it is to me. A lot of people are like, "Oh, woo woo, Reiki energy," and I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." That's not wrong either. But there really is this very physical energy, feeling, and space that is actually transformative in the process. And the really cool part about it, and about the idea of Reiki being this energy that exists everywhere in the universe, and it exists outside of time and space, right? Like it's just the energy of everything that um, is the idea that when you're healing, that you're healing in a multidimensional way, right? Like it's not just in this one moment in time for you, that it really has this very ripple effect on your life and the lives of people around you. And, depending on your belief system, the lives that came before and that will come after. So it's pretty profound. And the other cool thing about it is really anybody can do it. We all have the ability to tap into that energy to heal ourselves. And some of those things are, seem really simple and obvious. But the thing, like I said, that I've been focusing on is this idea of grace, not guilt. And that, I showed Lynn before we started my more self-love cup, right? So I think that we get caught up in this world, in this human world, in our human brains of what like self-care or even the like whole like treat yourself movement, right? Like that's all lovely. Taking a bubble bath or getting a massage or whatever. However, really, the self-care that is more, necessary over time for all of us is the idea of listening to our inner voices, right? And holding on to them and giving them validation and credit. And some of this comes, from my own therapeutic journey, because I certainly have done some other sort of talk therapy modalities that also kind of talk about these same concepts. But what I really wanted to focus on today, some of this comes from, it's actually a book about creatives. It's one that I picked up because my friend shared a studio with the artist who did the artwork, and it's called Your Inner Critic is a Big Jerk, right? And it's about sort of getting out of your own way as an artist and a creative, but it also has wider applications, right? And it also is talking about like this is how we all feel, right? Like that inner voice, like mm, you, right? Like that, where what we can really do instead is say, thank you, little donkey. You're a jerk, but you don't serve me anymore. So I'm gonna take the information you're providing for me and learn from it, but not allow you to trample all over everything, right? So a couple of concepts that I really like that the way that she packages it is this idea of the buckets of lies that we tell ourselves, right? And this is where we start with the how are we making ourselves feel guilty? What is guilt? Why do we put these things on ourselves? And it sort of starts with the baseline, right? Fear is one of the ones that is a motivator. I can't do it. I don't know how. I'll be embarrassed. I'll fail. There'll be mistakes. And these are all things that sort of invite us to listen to those outer critic voices too, right? People around us, our family members, whoever it is, the media, whatever it is. And that sort of builds that negative energy and creates one of those blocks, right? To be able to kind of have that ease and grace. Another one, the blame, right? The blame game. Somebody else is responsible. Something else is holding me back. It's this set of circumstances. It's my spouse, it's my parents, it's whatever else, right? That all may be true, but then that also is the sort of cover, right, to what probably the underlying issue is that we have with ourselves. And then there's like environmental issues, like your home space, your workspace, again, the sort of chaos that surrounds you in the home and, whatever it is, right? Like that those are the things that are, oh yeah, we can absolutely link to the book. So that those are the things that kind of interfere with, or we're saying are interfering with us. And like I know for me, I have like sensory things. Like yesterday I put on a pair of leggings because I was like, my legs want my leggings on today. But at the same time I was like, and I'm too hot. Right? Like so I'm like, no, this is interfering. I can't do anything right now. I can't do anything. And it was that one of those inner voices, right? And then time, right? We're always doing, well, it's not quite the right time. I need to figure out this first, or I'll wait until whatever, or I need this person to do this instead. And so at the end of the day, we come up with all these different things for ourselves, right? That create these different obstacles and blocks. And the problem is they often have a basis in reality, right? Like they often have some facts that are woven in with those other stories that we tell ourselves. So for the idea of grace, not guilt, and bringing in sort of the Reiki self-energy healing, the idea is to have some strategies to tap into what the true stories are that are underlying those things that we tell ourselves or the things that those internal voices are telling ourselves.
I
So
just I actually just read an article about about just this. We oftentimes say the meanest, most hurtful things to ourselves that we would never, ever, ever say to our best friend. And so we can say, like, we need to treat ourselves like our own best friend. But what I liked about the article, like, you just used the donkey, and yes, we will link up the book in the notes, and I put it in the chat too. But in the article, he was talking about how he gave his inner critic the name Becky. And he said it just to personify it makes it easier to address and acknowledge and say, oh, Becky, no, there you are again. Right. And so I like the donkey image though. I mean, it's just
yeah. Well, and I did a workshop with tweens just a couple weeks ago, and one of the exercises we did was drawing our own inner critic, right? And like what it would look like. And the things that they all came up with were so interesting. The one girl was like, she just did a swirl, right? It was like a big spiral, just a black, and she was like, this is the infinite nothing. She's 12. The infinite nothing. This is where everything goes when, it goes, or when my thoughts get stuck. And I'm like, that's brilliant, right? Like, I mean, here's a kid with such emotional intelligence to be able to tap into that part of herself and be like, that's the black hole that's sucking all of my positive energy. I was like, you're amazing. And I do think that that is one really good exercise to do for ourselves, right? Whether it's drawing, whether it's cutting out, pictures from a magazine, and creating sort of a collage, or even just a very simple image with like a background and a face, right? That sort of represents what some of those things are. I do a lot of that, like multimedia stuff, and have done those kind of cards where it's like, this very, like, maybe there's a kid in the foreground, and in the background there's like a lion jumping over top of it, right? So that's definitely one way to help validate and acknowledge the presence of those voices and that in our lives, and that it actually can give us information to move forward, but also to not allow it to take over, right? And one of the other things that we can do, I think, that helps is, especially when you get in that place of like the recurring like negative self-talk, is to do some sort of energy clearing and grounding strategies. So, and again, it sounds very simple, but to me, it's a little different than meditation, because these kind of exercises are things that are short, that you can do wherever you are, and that are really can be affecting in shifting your mood and where your energy is going fairly quickly, right? Like, it's not a solve all, but it can help to sort of put a stop to that. I call it the hamster wheel. In fact, when I someday produce my one woman show, what I've envisioned is an entire stage in the background with like giant hamster wheels with like actors on them, and they're all labeled different things like anxiety, my mother, whatever, all the different things that are the things that go through my head. So we all have those, right? It's not just necessarily one. So being able to sort of calm and clear all of those things at the same time, I find and have found when I've done this multiply. I'm trying to read the chat. So yeah, absolutely. The being able to draw your inner critic and be able to get that ongoing thing, get the feelings out, and to see where you are over time. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. That is, I'm just reading from the chat from one of our participants. So it does change, right? Like, when I've done this in the past, I definitely, like, when I was working through stuff with my own personal thing with my mom and whatever, like, the images definitely were more related to sort of her. Whereas now when I do them, they're a little bit more abstract, right? Because they're sort of more about where I'm at and what I'm going through. So absolutely. And it is fascinating to have that sort of journaled over time, right? That timeline of how your inner critic progresses and where they pop up, and like, kind of some of them quiet down for a little while and then they come back. That's a really helpful thing, I think, a helpful tool.
And I think it
So
also needs to be so validating and empowering to see like, oh, this is where I was at this time in my life, and like this is where I am now. And just to see that shift, to have it actually presented in that way is pretty amazing and empowering.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, the other thing that the other activity that I think is also helpful, whether it's in written word or in some sort of artistic expression, whether it's a drawing or, like I said, a collage or whatever, is to flip that around and do a either description or create an image of what your best self is, right? And sometimes the easiest way to do that is to envision it being someone else that we love seeing ourselves, right? Because sometimes we have a hard time seeing that in and of ourselves. But by creating that, whether it's a list of qualities or again, it's some sort of collage or whatever, right? We create that really concrete physical reference point so that, like, when you're having that rough time, you can be like, okay, this voice is in my head right now. This is what I know I am capable of. I am honoring that there is things in both spaces. And I'm actually going to share my screen because this is, um, I think you might have to enable my screen sharing, Lynn.
You should be able to because you're let me make you a co-host. Try now.
There we are. Very good. Okay. So this is something that I find to be, right? It's that holding that space between feeling good about yourself over here, joy, excitement, good times, happiness, and still at the same time feeling this other side, crisis, fear, hard times, and sadness, right? And the intersection of those two things, that sort of, in therapy, they talk about dialectics, right? Where there's two sides to everything. And that this space where you're holding space for both sets of feelings can be the most uncomfortable, right? Because on this side, this part of yourself feels that like guilty for feeling like this, right? And this side of yourself wants this side to feel good. So sometimes we create that own guilt unto ourselves, right? Where we're sort of reflecting it back and finding that is, to me, that is the space for grace, right? That is the space to be able to find the safe space within yourself to hold all of it in one place at one time. And that's where tapping into sort of the idea that, okay, there is this larger energy that exists that's supporting me to be able to hold myself in that space and to be able to really be able to internalize the healing, right? Like not just pay lip service to it, which isn't bad, right? Like fake it till you make it is not always a bad thing, but to really take that next level and be able to internalize it. And so this is where I want to share one of the activities that I do for myself, and I also share when I do discussions like this and with my clients. So it's the idea of both providing grounding for yourself in this space and also creating that literally that safe bubble of energy where you can create that safe space that feels like it expands beyond just you and your body, and it's actually like it's holding you, right? It's holding space for you. The universe is holding space for you. So if everybody wants to close their eyes for a minute and just take a breath, and we start with the grounding. And this can look however you want it to. I'm a very visual person, so whether you want to send roots down from like the center of your chest down into the ground all the way down to the center of the earth, I sort of envision grappling hooks like shooting down and hooking into the liquid hot magma in the center of the earth, and really feel that, like if you could put your feet on the floor even and feel how that feeling of being tethered, like in a really positive way, like being connected to the earth, really feels under your feet. And as you sit and think about it, you'll kind of feel that sensation growing that the earth is holding you in place. So that even when you feel like things are chaotic or, all over the place, that you're being held in a really safe way. And then that allows you the safe space to expand the rest of your being, because we so often are told that our souls are within our bodies. But when you think about it from an energy perspective, really, our beings exist on a much broader energetic level, and our bodies are just contained within that. So if you then are tethered to the earth, but you can also expand your energy out to feel your whole being and the fact that the universe is there to support and hold that energy. And just sit with it for a minute and just feel the expansiveness of your being, and that there's so much love and support for it. And then take that to the next level and really imagine what that energy bubble looks like for you. It could be a golden bubble of energy that is sparkly. It could be an actual clear iridescent bubble, just like one that, you blow when you're a kid. For me, it's this like very bright blue. I call it Sonic Blue because my kids are into Sonic the Hedgehog. But this very bright blue energy that is calm, it's comforting, and it is holding space for all of the things at the same time. And kind of hold that image in your mind, and then come back to yourself and your body in this room. Sort of wiggle your fingers and toes a little bit. Feel yourself back into the space. And that hopefully kind of brings to you, and can open your eyes, and whenever you're comfortable. It's like giving yourself a warm energy hug, right? Like it's really being able to tap into and embrace the fact that there's so much positive and supportive energy around us, that it's there, and it's there for us all the time. So that's where, when we hit those moments of this in-between space and the feelings of guilt that are sort of being fueled, we can kind of use that to come back around, and then look, instead of the bucket of lies that our inner critic is telling ourselves, look at the bucket of truths, right? The true stories about who we are and what our healing journey is. So that really, to me, looks like, empathy and self-compassion, that holding space for ourselves, right? And the ability to say, this space sucks, right? It is lousy. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it. But I know that I've got this other side over here, and I am tethered, I am grounded, and I can tolerate holding space for both of these things at the same time. And it's different than just holding space for one or the other, right? Like holding space for joy is one thing, holding space for sadness is one thing. Holding space for joy and sadness at the same time is so much more complicated and profoundly dissonant in our heads, right? There's that just cognitive dissonance. How do I feel both of these things? And to be able to just take that question away and say, I just do, and just honor that. And then there's an accountability factor, right? Where like you are responsible for your own feelings and behavior, which can sound accusatory, but to say, no, I am and can be responsible for my own happiness. I can do that without any external forces. It's a hard one. I'm still working on it. And ultimately, doing sort of the be authentic and true to yourself, which again, I feel like that gets overused, but knowing, start the day with a daily affirmation. I say this to everybody, I don't care what age or what gender or whatever. Start, even if it's just, I'm awesome, right? Do it, right? Just write it down, put it on a sticky note, do whatever it is to start the day that way, because that way you can't forget to do it. And you start the day with that positive energy really fueling you, right? And the girls that I was teaching, there was 5 of them in this group, and they were like, oh, I don't know if I really talk to myself that way. And I was like, well, about time you started. And I was like, and by the way, I don't do it every day either, and I need to take my own advice, right? And then the 2 final things that I'll wrap up with. One is um, the thing about guilt and about being in that in-between space, I think, is we get caught up in the trauma Olympics, right? What I'm going through isn't as bad as, or what I'm going through is worse than, or, right? Not all the time. But I think reminding ourselves that that trauma is trauma. Doesn't matter what size, doesn't matter length of time that's passed since it occurred, doesn't matter if it's ongoing or was one incident. That is where we often end up holding this space, right? Is just acknowledging whatever it is that had an impact on our lives is valid. And nobody else has to acknowledge that, but there are other people out there who will, right? And like finding groups like this where you can share those common experiences also is one of those healing spaces, right? Like in having this kind of group, you're creating that energy, whether you know it or not, right? And that's such a gift. And then the last thing is, grace doesn't mean perfection. The idea of the universal energy that's out there is that, it literally holds space for everything. And we can't be perfect. We do have human brains. We are gonna F it up from time to time. But that's, again, all information for us to be able to take and learn from, and then continue to expand out into our larger selves and sort of tap into that healing energy. So that is.
Well, when we're talking, what's so interesting, and I believe in my intentional coincidences, I just came across this image. It was either yesterday or the day before. And in our group, I post kind of like a daily, it's either a daily affirmation or some kind of like uplifting thing in the morning. And I just scheduled this one.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. But when I looked at this, it's the permission of the and. We can sit with these 2 things at the same time, and that's really hard. And it's okay, but we're so used to saying, feelings are not good or bad, they just are. There are some that are harder than others, right? But we're so used to saying we're happy or sad. Well, no, you could be both at the same time. And it's just not the way that we were kind of taught. And exactly. We have permission to sit with that, and it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's hilarious. And you're right, it is absolutely intentional coincidences. There is nothing that is not. And that was the one other thing that I wanted to share before we end, if you're okay with that, is
absolutely. And in the chat, love that too. Grace doesn't mean perfection. I made a mental note of that as well. I love that too.
It's that's been a big one for me. So, and this is again ties into that. And this woman, Nedra Tawwab, is, if you follow her on Facebook, she has amazing posts. But it's that I'm still doing the work, so it's likely that, right? I will make a mistake in my judgment. My boundaries won't be crystal clear to others. I'm going to have an off day. I won't handle bad news in the best way. My emotions will impact my behavior. I won't be able to explain what I'm feeling and why. I won't remember to use the appropriate coping skills. I will forgive someone and later regret it. And I won't be perfect, right? And I feel like this kind of thing is like the counterpoint to the daily affirmations, right? The affirmations are, I am awesome. I am an expansive human being. I am a being beyond my human being in this, energy and the universe and the world. At the same time, like the absolutely is, these things are also true. And that's where we also find space to, have grace for ourselves in that as well.
And have permission to forgive ourselves when we do slip up.
Exactly.
Yeah, love this so much. What is kind of, you gave so many amazing tips and like really made a lot of things clear. If you could say, like, starting today, just do this one small thing, this one small shift, what would it be?
I think it is that start the day with a positive thought about yourself, and start the day with thinking about yourself as that expanded version of your being, right? That you're not contained by the limits of your human body. And then, go from there.
Love it. Amazing. Any questions for those of you on live? And you can either use the chat or you can unmute.
And also feel free to reach out to me afterwards too. And anybody who watches the video wants to reach out and has questions, I'm happy to be available.
And I'm gonna link up everything in both the description that goes with the video, and anybody, it's gonna go out in an email as well too. So people will
Great.
and of course you can always reach out to me and I can get you Heather's information. So cool. So for me, my big aha was grace doesn't mean perfection. It's in the chat, but I had made a mental note and then I wrote it down so I don't forget it. Grace doesn't mean perfection.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for participating and for your comments and questions.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. If you would like to reach out to Heather, look in the description, check your emails. If you are live, you will be getting it, or contact me and I'll be happy to put you in touch with her. Thank you so much, Heather. This was amazing. It's an honor. It's a privilege. My dear friend, we've been through a lot, and we're on to this chapter now, right?
Absolutely. And thank you, because doing this, I mean, is very, it's, I am altruistic about it, but I mean, frankly, I take a lot out of it too. And it really does bring so much positive energy to me. So thank you for the opportunity to share it.